And we are live. Do I need to start off every live video by saying that? Yes. The creature of comfort. Now, I would like to talk about an Aquarian service and ceremony, liturgy, and liturgical practice. These words denote religiosity. I'm aware. What the Aquarian is a reformer of religious thought, secular ideology, but it does so in the vessel of a spiritual community. And I put quotations on almost everything I say. When I say things like spiritual, because somebody could just believe in the mental, and with the definition of spirituality, that entails mentalism. They could be seen as congruent, close to synonymous, but definitely not exclusive of each other. Radical inclusivity is Aquarianism. You want to find out what Aquarianism? Go research the attributes of the archetype of the astrological sign of Aquarius and its constellation, its share of the axis Leo. Then you're going to want to go, those are the two fixed signs. You're going to go to the other pole that intersects that completes our fixed signs, which is the axis of the other fixed signs, which is Scorpio and Taurus. Now, astrology serves as a way to set up our liturgy and our liturgical practices. That together with the liturgical practice of breaking us out, carrying us out of blood scapegoat ritual and ceremony. And we are replacing that and encouraging other faith practices or spiritual communities or religions to stop the sacrificing of a life to some God. And you know what? We even do that in the military too. How many lives have been sacrificed for their country because God was on their side? It is something new, which is why it's hard to name. Because when we're looking to name something, we're attaching something that has already been onto that. And now there's use in that to help us to say what it is, what it isn't, through negation. But then there is positive affirmation. That's why in the religious work of many whom I admire, who are mythicists, who have come to the same conclusion that the religious stories of the Hebrew people's scriptures and then later the Judeo-Christian scriptures. Those characters from Moses to Jesus, fictional. And then Muhammad and Islam, those stories are based on the Judeo-Christian scriptures, theology. So now that we've torn that out of the foundation with a historically critical approach to it, an Aquarian mental process, then we take a comb and we bring it through the religions and that which is useful, and perhaps in the way that it structures some of its practices and its meetups, we can take in and bring forward in its use of music and candles, incense, and the creation of ceremony, meaningful community, bring people together in a sense in one body and one mind, one spirit, one heart, to be nurtured soulfully. But also we do this in celebrating the differences in all the communities. What is a similarity that we could all meet on is namely humanitarianism. And so if somebody's teachings or interpretations of their teachings and practices promote a God who is supremic racially or religiously, and is calls for violence to the outside group, to the other, or even create to other through inclusivity, secrecy even. I just look to sororities and fraternities for secrecy and fraternal organizations. One does not have to believe in energy work or any new agey thing. They can be very materialistic, scientific, pragmatic, and participate in the community in meaningful ways. Hopefully at service. Perhaps one's encouraged through these gatherings to come to a more charitable life. That's just a beautiful fruit, hopefully, but not even necessary. That's not even necessary to be an acting Aquarian. All you have to do is just not harm somebody. Just don't hurt anybody. And take responsibility for your own self. And hopefully what we could do through these teachings, of these esoteric teachings, of the metaphysiological, metaphorical, allegorical, symbolic meanings of these stories, not the literal historical meanings of these stories, we can learn more about ourselves to help better control ourselves, our minds, and therefore our actions, to lead towards a more healthy community, life experience for ourselves and others. One, not going to an empty, nihilistic materialism, which is just might is right, but one that is conscientious of others and their equal dignity as a human, and therefore their equal right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, property. That we are not property, we are not numbers that can just be discarded. Not just because somebody wasn't born into some fake royal system doesn't mean them are less royal or divine even. Man is the measure. Trying to fully become man, ascending out of our animalistic nature, but also not escapism from the material level. Fully embracing existence, hopefully, which entails the elementals, matter, the material realm, and we embrace it hopefully through love and charity, and that just could be You can just embrace it. I mean, you don't even have to embrace it. It doesn't hurt anybody. You don't have to. Whenever we don't make dogmatic statements, in a sense, Aquarianism is agnostic, meaning in the sense that we're searching for truth, and we look to use the rational, our ability to be rational, without suppressing the emotional, which is very closely tied to the suppression of the material. But then we see where an empty materialism could lead us to as well. So we embrace it, we're trying to transform, perhaps, or just bring out and highlight the beauty, the good, that true that is in this world. Where there is suffering, evil, let us be valiant and courageous to address it, wherein to hopefully be a light, the lamp to carry other divine sparks together, serving as almost a vessel, like a ship over troubled waters. I'm getting seasick. Music, engaging the senses. That is part of not escaping from the material realm. But also overly indulging, like, there's a theology that goes into that actually. Sin, out of the sin is salvation, so they flip it around to inversion type matters, perverting perhaps the as above, so below, or within the material world there are sparks and they can be redeemed. The Kelipa, the Klypto, the dark side, the Kabbalistic tree of life, the shards from the vessel that couldn't contain the light and shattered, and but still in those dark shards there are some redeemable qualities that can be brought out. And so then some of the tzaddik, some of the rebbes, and dark occultists, Kabbalists gone dark is through breaking taboos. Well, that's related, but going against. Okay, so the Sabbath, keep the Sabbath holy. Instead, they do the very opposite. They like party, have orgies, get drunk and stuff on the Sabbath. Part of that is a teaching that, because this radical dualism, but then ultimately there is no dualism, so then there is no evil, so it really can't do bad. Actually, theology can take you to bad places where it's used to justify evil shit that hurts other human beings. Often, the first part is to dehumanize another and lift yourselves up. This is done through classism. The royal, the elite, talk about the lesser like they're not human. You can see it in the way that they treat people. Now, this is done through religion. We're chosen, you're not chosen. We're saved, you're not saved. We're going to heaven, you're damned. We're redeemed. Even in India, where I often do praise their theological system, I think that's where everything came from. The Indo-Aryan Valley. They still have the caste system in place, and then there's places where they make the emperor, the royal God on earth, God made manifest, which the Greek and the Roman emperors did it too. The Egyptians too. The pharaoh was like Osiris. It's when they take these myths and put them into a fictional historical story, that's where it's used to control people. So realizing that these are allegorical, not historical, that really frees us. Unbreak my heart, baby, let me be. What do we do to church hymns and the liturgy? We strip out all that incorporates a blood atonement, scapegoat, sacrificial ritual that involves the sacrificing of somebody else, of a human or an animal. Take responsibility for our own sins, and we're sacrificing unto ourselves, and we're sacrificing unto the community when we do acts that are in charity, not just self-serving, but when we can think of ourselves connected and a bigger capital S self, then we can see how being self, like like what's it called when you almost say attune to yourself, but take care of yourself. You take care of yourself, you're also taking care of the whole. And then so when you, that's how the church said there's no such thing as private sin. I don't like the word sin or the word church even that much, but you get the point. So even when you do these small little acts on a small level, that ripple effect goes out into the collective because we're all on this web together. The idea of the law of attraction is tied to that. A hermetic principle that is as old as time. It was just packaged up and marketed well by, well, somebody took the initiative to put it into a book. So good for them. I ain't gonna hate the game. They took the initiative. They're probably a cardinal sign. They take initiatives. Aries, Capricorn. Libra, the least of the initiative of the cardinal signs. Aries, very initiative. Capricorn, they'll initiate a plan. And then Cancer, they initiate a new way to feel about something as often as the moon moves. There's many moods. We incorporate the esoteric traditions, and a big part of that is astrology. And so the holidays and the themes and the colors and the music and the tones and the tunes should go with the seasons. And how do we know what should go with the seasons? By measuring the light versus the dark. Where the sun is mainly, because that's our star gate. That's what funnels all the light to us. The moon reflects, and so do the planets. The next thing are the stars, which are other suns themselves. With other planets going around them, just like ours, very likely. So to think that there's not life on another planet is really not that logical. To think that there's not life on another planet. Now you get multi-dimensional. Oh yeah, and I want to see like guitars and like I don't want to be like nerdy Christian youth ministries. I like the shirts and stuff and having the same shirt's cool, but uniformity. That's not so Aquarian. It's really uniqueness. But there has to be some type of organization. And does organization necessarily include uniformity? Well, we all have to go by the same clock. So yeah, on some level it does. The challenge is going to be to organize structure so that's productive, so it's to be utilized. Is trying to do that all without going into like authoritarian dictatorshipness, selling out to some big corporation. I don't know if they show up at the door tomorrow and they're like, Mr. Liam, we like what you're doing with the Aquarian. We're gonna buy it from you for $1 billion. I said, sure. But then they make you sign a no compete clause. And they're like, okay, and you can't go and do anything similarly. Just a mental exercise. Oh no, the sun is opposing Neptune right now. It's so weird. Have fun with it. You could be a little bit tired though. Said dream La La Land. Just feeling dreamy. It's Friday though. Venus is exalted on Friday. Veneris. Freya. Freya's day. See, that learning that all the gods and goddesses are the planets, that's a way to syncretize religions. For one religion to come together in harmony with others. Is when you realize that their gods and their religious characters are namely the planets, constellations, sun, the moon, or the elements. And then a story pasted on them to make it seem like your people are the chosen kings. That's what happened in Judaism. Is Babylonian Chaldean astral myth and its foundation. And then Christianity takes that, creates its own newer character out of that Jesus, who's also a combination of Mithras, the other cult deities at the time, Osiris, Horus, Set, Saturn, Jesus for Saturn, Horus for Set. Ahura Mazda, Mazdaism, Zoroastrianism versus Nanga, Mangu, or Zoroastrian is very dualistic. I think, which is Persian, which I believe is where Second Temple, later Judaism, really more Kabbalistic, took that in a combination with Platonic thought, which, which is why Hermeticism is also out of that same area, and Christian Kabbalism. But there's Kabbalistic, mystic, esoteric stuff in the story of Jesus and Moses. Religious studies is something that we do in the Aquarian. Philosophy and science. We also be careful of the negative attributes of Aquarius and look to avoid falling into those, which would be absolute mentalism, grand universal mind stuckness. Aquarius, they could be revolutionary, but they could also be. It's just where large masses come together. Large masses can come together to like revolve, uh, revolt out of the system, out of the structure of the system, which would be Capricorn. The system generator from the thought, that's Aquarius. The carpenter is Capricorn. Libra is the one who like gets other together, gets people together to agree to come together on it, and who brings kind of harmony and peace. Libra is a beautiful sign. We got September 22nd coming up, which is the fall equinox. What do you want to do there? You want to set something into place, set a new way of thinking. A new light comes in. That's why I believe it's the first new moon after the spring equinox is the Jewish New Year. Opposite of that is Easter. So while the Christians celebrate the death and resurrection, or judgment, and then glorification at Aries, where the sun's exalted, Judaism does it where Saturn is exalted. Saturn is the the leader of the cult of the Shabbatinians, those who practice on the Sabbath, Saturday. The name for Saturn in Hebrew is Shabbat, and then the sun, Shamash. Is the Shin, the Hebrew letter that Shaddai stands for, and you'll see it on the mezuzah placed in the doorways of people of the Jewish faith who practices Babylonian, Mesopotamian, mainly cult. That was later joined with Yahweh, the son of El. I say that's just more just showing the planetary synchronisms, esoteric teachings in these religions, so that we could approach them from a metaphorical, metaphysical way. And perhaps they serve to give us a cosmology that we could build a liturgy upon, and a structure in the way that we meet and what we do when we meet. Example, during Libra, where we meet the scales of justice, of judgment, there's a feeling of repentance, and all those things happen going into Easter, and then for Christians, and then what's opposite, the other equinox in the spring, at the fall equinox, falling into the world, into the other relationship with other. That's the dark. The first part, the book of life, is pretty much as you, your stuff, your thoughts, and then going under, which is going to the other Libra relations. So go find any reading or come up with your own that speaks on Libra stuff. Cardinal, air, going into air sign in the air part of the season. First sign of fall, its ruler being Venus. Saturn, the place of exaltation. And it gives you a whole wide array of things to bring into the theme of the meetup at that time. You could even use stories in the Bible, as long as you come to an interpretation that doesn't enforce religious or racial superiority or condone violence or call for violence. Incorporate the elements. And that was good. Keep it up. Keep it up.